I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Family gatherings always felt routine, boring, and predictable. But this day changed everything. It was a Saturday evening. My mom invited the whole family over for a traditional dinner to celebrate Grandpa's anniversary. I came reluctantly, tired after a long work week. But I knew I couldn't say no. Family is sacred after all. Besides, it was a chance to see everyone I hadn't seen in months. When I stepped into the house, the smell of pies and roast hit me. The buzz of voices, laughter, and clinking glasses. Everything was just like always. Mom was bustling around the kitchen. Dad was joking with my uncle on the couch. I greeted a few relatives, exchanged some small talk, and headed to the kitchen to help Mom. But the moment I walked in, I froze. She was standing by the counter, arranging appetizers on a tray. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, and her light dress showed off the graceful lines of her figure. Vanessa, my cousin. We hadn't seen each other in years, and now I barely recognized her. The girl I remembered had turned into a stunning, confident woman. She looked up and smiled, a warm but mischievous smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Hey, Mark," she said. Her voice was soft, with a playful hint. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect to see you." The words got caught in my throat, and I trailed off. She smirked, her eyes sparkling. "See me what?" "See you all grown up," I finally managed. She laughed, and my heart clenched. This laugh was different, richer, like she knew something I didn't. "Can you help with these plates?" she asked, snapping me out of my thoughts. I nodded and stepped forward, trying to focus on the task instead of the way her fingers moved gracefully, or how her hair glowed in the light. We worked side by side, barely talking. But the silence wasn't empty. It was charged, like something unsaid hung in the air. I felt her presence with every fiber of my being. After dinner, everyone split off. Some played cards, others caught up on the latest news. I went out to the terrace to get some fresh air. The night was cool, and the stars shone brightly overhead. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice said behind me. I turned around. Vanessa stood in the doorway, her eyes shimmering in the darkness. "Yeah," I said. "I missed this." She stepped closer, her shoulder almost brushing mine. We stood in silence, looking up at the night sky. My heart pounded in my chest. I could feel her warmth, her breath. "You've changed," she said quietly. "You're more serious now." "Time does that," I replied, not looking at her. "But some things stay the same." I turned to her, and our eyes met. In her gaze, I saw the reflection of my own thoughts. Doubt, forbidden curiosity, desire. She took a step closer, and I caught the scent of her perfume mixed with something warm and natural. "Vanessa," I started, but the words faltered. She reached up and touched my face. Her fingers were warm and soft. I couldn't look away. "Maybe this is wrong," she whispered, "but why does it feel so right?" I didn't know what to say. In that moment, logic, reason, and rules disappeared. It was just the two of us. I leaned in, and our lips met. The kiss was soft and hesitant, but behind it was a spark we'd both been holding back. She moved closer, and I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her in. Time stood still. "Mark," she whispered. "I know," I replied. "But I can't stop." Her eyes flashed with something intense. She took my hand and led me toward the garden. The dark trees shielded us from the house lights. We were alone. I looked at her, her face glowing in the moonlight. She was beautiful. "No one can see us here," she said, her voice trembling. I traced my hand along her cheek, down her neck, and she closed her eyes, trusting my touch. That night was ours. Forbidden, wrong, but somehow perfect. We melted into each other, forgetting everything else. Only the stars bore witness. When we finally went back inside, it was almost 3 in the morning. Everyone was asleep. We tiptoed down the hallway, trying not to wake anyone. We stopped outside her room. "Good night," I whispered. She smiled, her eyes shining. "Good night, Mark." I stood there until she closed the door. My mind was still spinning. I knew tomorrow would pull us back to reality, but right now, it didn't matter. I went into my room and lay on the bed. The thought of what had happened kept me awake. I didn't know what would come next. But one thing was certain. That night changed everything. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains. I stretched, feeling a pleasant exhaustion in my body. Memories of last night flooded back. There was a knock on the door. "Mark, are you up?" Vanessa's voice was soft. "Yeah, come in." She stepped in, her eyes glowing, but her face held a hint of worry. "We need to talk," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. I sat up beside her, our shoulders touching. "I know," I said. "It's complicated. But I don't regret it," she said, her eyes full of determination. "Do you?" I looked at her and smiled. Not for a second. She sighed in relief and rested her head on my shoulder. We didn't know what the future held, but right now, in this moment, everything felt right. And maybe, sometimes, it's worth risking everything for a moment of true happiness.